The story begins in the Demon Castle, where our protagonist reflects that in every era, justice always prevails over evil. A knight questions whether he is the Demon King, and he confirms it, sensing the weight of his destiny. He acknowledges himself as the great being who rules over all demons, the 100th Demon King, Luruslia Nord. Luruslia begins to wonder when everything started. Long ago, humans viewed demons as evil. Many of his kin were slain in the name of justice, and in retaliation, the demons fought back. Eventually, both sides pointed their swords at each other, leaving no chance for negotiation and rendering the conflict meaningless. He understands that the victor of this senseless war will inevitably rule the world. However, he also knows that humans have always feared overwhelming power. He recalls a future where the strongest heroes bring about the Demon King's end. Still, he believes there is no need for concern, as both sides have reached a point where weapons are already drawn and no peaceful path remains. While the Demon King possesses absolute power, the heroes gain their strength through trials granted by gods and spirits. With both sides wielding powerful trump cards, the battle becomes intense. In the end, justice prevails, a belief passed down from generation to generation. Because of this, Luruslia is ultimately defeated by the heroes. As the sword pierces his chest, he realizes that the heroes were thoroughly prepared. Among them are a swordmaster, a saintess, and an archmage. Despite everything, the world perceives the heroes as justice and the Demon King as evil. He begins to suspect that his defeat may indeed be the right outcome and allows himself a small, resigned smile. The knight notices his quiet laughter and wonders if he is hiding something. He meets the knight's gaze and reflects on a promise he made. The daughter of a friend was celebrating her birthday the next day. He remembers telling the child, Iris, that he would visit her and how she had welcomed the news with joy. He then informs the knight that the end of demonkind is near. Tears fall as he realizes that once the Demon King is gone, the remaining demons will be hunted, and Iris will be among those lost. The knight stands silently for a moment, considering his words, and then admits it seems he is telling the truth. He responds that of course he is, and reveals that all either side has done until now is kill each other. The church may call demons servants of evil in their teachings, but at their core, humans and demons are the same. He suggests that if the knight cannot believe his words, she should see the truth for herself. In time, she may come to question the church's teachings about the necessity of killing demons. As he begins to fade away, he speaks once more, expressing a hope that, should she ever feel anything toward demonkind, she would understand. He corrects himself, saying that what he truly meant was a hope for a shared future between demons and humans. The knight watches him disappear and reaches for him, acknowledging that she understands. She places a hand on his shoulder and expresses belief in his words, promising not to discriminate against demons. He quietly thanks her and realizes that the knight is a woman. This becomes his farewell, one that leads into the depths of hell. The final sight he beholds before death is the angry expression of the saintess. He wonders why she gazes at him with such hatred, but concludes that, as someone about to vanish, he does not need to know the reason. He finds comfort in the belief that, if the knight survives, the future will be in good hands. The Demon King, defeated by the hero, disappears from the world. The story is said to end happily, but that is not the truth. A voice begins to call out his name, Luru, over and over. He slowly opens his eyes. A woman smiles at him gently and greets him upon his awakening. He noticed that the person approaching him was a human woman. As she came closer, he began to worry about what she intended to do. She gently picked him up and commented that he was a good boy. When he tried to stop her, he caught sight of his small hand. She mentioned that he must be hungry and added that his mother would soon prepare a meal. At that moment, he realized that the woman holding him was his mother and felt a warm, comforting sensation wash over him. Although he knew he needed to think, he was already beginning to lose consciousness. According to a myth passed down through the demon tribe, creatures transcend the boundaries of species through the cycle of birth and death, and are reborn into new life forms. Luruslia, now known as Luru, never imagined he would experience it firsthand. He could clearly recall the days spent with his comrades and the moment of his defeat at the hands of the heroes. This made him wonder why he had reincarnated with his memories as the former demon lord and whether it held any particular meaning. No matter how much he thought about it, in his current form, all he could do was eat and sleep. He remembered how he had once been busy with official duties and endless battles. But now, as a baby, he found himself with nothing but free time. Observing the maid nearby, he realized he needed to gather information quickly. He wanted to ask her how many years had passed since the demon lord was defeated, but quickly understood that he couldn't even speak. He wished he could gain control of his body soon. The maid, suddenly recalling a task, picked up her wand and prepared to heat some water. She began chanting, summoning the red burn to produce a small flame. Watching her, he wondered whether that was supposed to be a spell and why the grammar in the chant sounded so strange. He thought that such a basic spell shouldn't require chants or tools at all. Then it dawned on him that, since being reborn into this infant body, he hadn't used magic even once. He began to wonder just how much magical power he now possessed. He clenched his tiny fist, knowing that humans generally had far less magical power than demons and expecting very little. But to his surprise, he felt a vast and overwhelming amount of magic within him. This made him question whether not just his memories but also his magical power had carried over. The sensation was no different from what he had felt as the Demon Lord, but he found himself unable to channel magic through his body as smoothly as before. He speculated that this might be due to either his human nature or the underdeveloped state of his body. Still, he believed that with special training, he could overcome it. He soon noticed that no one was around, which gave him the opportunity to explore his power. He knew that without it, he would be destroyed again, just like in his previous life. 7 years later, he stood in the library, freely using his power. He levitated books around him without even needing to climb onto a chair. After reading them, a snap of his fingers returned the books neatly to their shelves. Though a little concerned about attracting attention, he was relieved to see he could now use magic to a decent extent. He suspected he could even perform large-scale spells, but he knew their power was enough to destroy an entire village. That was something he had no intention of testing. As he walked through the room, he reflected that aside from magic, he had learned a few other things. From the day of his defeat, he had discovered that several thousand years had passed, which explained why everything now felt unfamiliar. Suddenly, someone called out to him. His mother had found him and noted his whereabouts. She noticed the book he was reading and asked if he was reading myths about the ancient demons again. He confirmed that he was, and explained that he found them fascinating. The ancient demons, once at war with humans, were now considered mythical beings, their existence questioned by many. His mother gently patted his head and asked whether he genuinely loved reading or if it was simply the natural fascination of childhood. He smiled softly, knowing that no one believed in the ancient demons anymore. Still, he was convinced that some of them might have survived. Demons lived much longer than humans, and even if only a few remained, he believed he could find them. Though for now, being just 7 years old, he was confined to the village and could do little more than read. His mother then recalled something and mentioned that his father, Patrick, would be returning home soon. In a letter, Patrick had said it would be about 2 weeks, and she hoped he would bring more books back with him. Patrick Caddis Nora, a sword instructor for the Kingdom of Leonard's Knights and the Lord of Caddis Village, was someone Luru longed to see again. He hoped he might resume swordsmanship training with him. But then, his mother paused again, remembering something else she had come to say. She asked whether he had plans to meet Rusty and the others that day. He realized he had lost track of time and confirmed it. His mother then urged him to hurry up and get ready or else he would be late. He agreed and soon found himself at the meeting spot, arriving just a little behind schedule. At that moment, someone called out and waved to him. It was Rusty, accompanied by 2 girls who pointed out that he was late. Rusty remarked that Luru had finally arrived and questioned whether they hadn't agreed to meet at that very spot. Luru apologized and explained that he had been delayed while reading a book. Rusty asked if reading was really that enjoyable, then added that, in his opinion, if someone was a boy, their interests should revolve around adventure. He then proudly declared that he intended to become an adventurer someday. Luru simply looked at him in silence. Mi chimed in, teasing that Rusty was always talking about adventure, yet he hadn't even passed Patrick's swordsmanship test. With a smirk, she asked when exactly they could expect to leave the village. Rusty, irritated, told me she was being too harsh. Yuri gently stepped in and told me that her words had been too much, pointing out that dreaming about something was important. The 3 children had been Luru's closest companions since his reincarnation. He knew that both Mi and Yuri harbored feelings for Rusty, which was likely why they didn't want him to leave the village. However, he also understood that it was another matter entirely whether Rusty was aware of their feelings. Luru then changed the subject by asking Rusty if he hadn't made a promise that day. He reminded him that something was supposed to happen, and noted that Rusty had seemed excited about it. Rusty's eyes lit up as he confirmed that Luru was right. Today was the day they had been waiting for. With enthusiasm, he declared that real adventurers were coming. Yuri pointed out that adventurers occasionally passed through the village, but asked whether those were just guards for merchants. Rusty excitedly denied it, insisting that this time it was different. A top-class adventurer, one who blazed trails into uncharted lands and would one day become a legend, was expected to arrive. He urged them all to head to the village entrance to meet the newcomer. Although hesitant at first, they all knew that once Rusty got an idea in his head, there was no stopping him. Shortly after, the group reached the village entrance and saw a crowd already forming. However, they were met with disappointment when they found no adventurer in sight. Luru told Rusty that it seemed the guest hadn't arrived yet, which left Rusty looking deflated. But in the next moment, Rusty brightened again, wondering aloud whether the adventurer might be arriving soon. He darted to the front, shouting excitedly that he would go check. As the 2 girls chased after Rusty, Luru smiled quietly to himself. He knew that being an adventurer meant exploring lands and slaying monsters. In the past, such a profession hadn't been necessary, but it now seemed that once managed lands had returned to an untamed state. He couldn't help but wonder whether that was merely the result of time's passage. Suddenly, a panicked scream cut through the air. A massive monster was charging toward the village and directly toward Rusty, who was in the lead. Luru instantly released his power, recognizing it as a monster from the forest. But before he could act further, he felt another powerful force at work. An elf appeared and used wind-based whirlwind magic to halt the monster's advance. At that moment, a figure leapt onto the monster's back. With remarkable ease, the man decapitated the beast with a single swing of his sword. Leroux stood stunned by what he had just witnessed. As the monster vanished, the man, clearly the adventurer, looked at Rusty, referred to him as a boy, and asked whether he was injured. Rusty, who had fallen to the ground in fear, quickly stood up and shouted with excitement,